Okay, so we're in Mishneh Torah. We're dealing with the negative mitzvot. Mitzvot lo ta'aseh, January 8th, 2025. We left off with mitzvah, we ended with mitzvah 300, and we're going to continue. So mitzvah 300 is, do not add to the lashes of one liable to lashing. As it states, he shall not add, lest he add. Okay, so 301, not to be a talebearer. As it states, you should not go as a talebearer among your people. 302, not to bear hatred in one's heart. As it states, do not hate your brother in your heart. 303, not to humiliate any Jew. As it states, admonish your fellow man, but not in a way that would make you bear sin. 304, not to take revenge. As it states, do not take revenge. That is one that, like, they say it's as simple as if somebody asks you to use your stapler. You give them your stapler. It comes back broken. Tomorrow, they ask you to use your scissors, and you say, no, I can't give you my scissors because you broke my stapler. Or you don't even say the reason why. You just say, no, you can't use my scissors. That's taking revenge. In Torah, it is very, very finite. 305, not to bear a grudge. As it states, do not bear a grudge. 306, not to take the mother bird along with its young. As it states, do not take the mother bird along with the young. So that was 306. So 307, do not shave the hair of bald spot za'aras, as it states, in the bald spot za'aras he shall not shave. 308, not to tear off the signs of za'aras, as it states, give heed to the leprous affliction. 309, not to work or sow around the swiftly flowing stream where a calf was beheaded to atone for the unsolved murder, as it states, which must never be worked or sown. Okay, 310, that a bridegroom not be required to fulfill public responsibilities for the duration of his first year of marriage, such as military service, guarding the walls, and the like. As it states, he should not go out for military service, not be assigned any related duties. 311, not to let a sorcerer live. As it states, you should not let a witch live. 312, not to disobey the court. As it states, do not deviate from all that they tell you. Do not, with 313, do not add to the mitzvot of the Torah, whether the written Torah or an orally transmitted exposition. As it states, all that which I command you, you must heed to fulfill, do not add to it. 314, not to detract from any of the Torah's commandments, as it states, and do not detract from it. 315, not to curse a judge, as it states, do not curse authority. 316, not to curse the leader, that is the king or the head of the yeshiva of the Eretz Yisrael, as it states, and your nation's leader you shall not curse. 317, not to curse any Jew, as it states, do not curse even the deaf. 318, not to curse one's father or mother, as it states, one who curses his father or mother shall be put to death. 319, not to strike one's father or mother, as it states, one who strikes one's father and mother shall be put to death. 320, not to perform constructive labor on Shabbos, as it states, do not do any constructive labor. 321, not to go outside city limits as where wayfarers do on Shabbos, as it states, no one shall leave his place. 322, not to administer punishment on Shabbos, as it states, do not ignite fire in all your places of settlement. 323, not to perform constructive labor on the first day of Pesach, as it states, all labor shall not be performed on them. 324, not to perform constructive labor on the seventh day of Pesach, about which it states, all labor shall not be performed on them. 325, not to perform constructive labor on the festival of Shavuot, as it states, all constructive labor you shall not do. 326, not to perform constructive labor on the first day of the seventh month, Rosh Hashanah, about which it states, all constructive labor you shall not do. 327, not to perform constructive labor on Yom Kippur, as it states, and you shall not perform any labor. 328, not to perform constructive labor on the first day of Sukkot festival, as it states, all constructive labor you shall not do. 329, not to perform constructive labor on the eighth day of the festival, about which it states, all constructive labor you shall not do. 330, do not cohabitate with one's mother, as it states, she is your mother, do not cohabitate with her. 331, not to cohabitate with one's sister, as it states, do not cohabitate with your sister. 332, not to cohabitate with one's father's wife, as it states, do not cohabitate with your father's wife. 333, not to cohabitate with a half-sister from one's father or from one's mother, as it states, to cohabitate with the daughter of your father's wife, with the daughter of your father's wife, whom she bore by your father, she is your sister, do not cohabitate with her. 334, not to cohabitate with one's son's daughter, as it states, do not cohabitate with your son's daughter. 335, not to cohabitate with one's daughter's daughter, as it states, or your daughter's daughter, do not cohabitate with them. 336, not to cohabitate with one's daughter. And why is this not specified in the Torah? For the Torah prohibited the daughter's daughter, and therefore remained silent regarding the daughter. And by oral tradition, they learned that the prohibition to cohabitate with one's daughter is of Torah origin, just as the other forbidden liaisons. 337, not to cohabitate with a woman and her daughter, as it states, do not cohabitate with a woman and her daughter. 338, not to cohabitate with a woman and her son's daughter, as it states, the daughter of her son. 339, not to cohabitate with a woman and her daughter's daughter, as it states, and her daughter's daughter you shall not take. 340, not to cohabitate with one's father's sister, as it states, do not cohabitate with your father's sister. 341, not to cohabitate with one's mother's sister, as it states, do not cohabitate with your mother's sister. 342, not to cohabitate with your father's brother's wife, as it states, do not approach his wife, she is your aunt. 343, not to cohabitate with one's son's wife, as it says, do not cohabitate with your daughter-in-law. 344, not to cohabitate with one's daughter's wife, as it states, do not cohabitate with your brother's wife. Did I say that right? 344, not to cohabitate with one's brother's wife, as it states, do not cohabitate with your brother's wife. Okay, so 345, not to cohabitate with one's wife's sister, as it states, do not take a woman in addition to her sister. 346, not to cohabitate with a woman in her menstrual impurity, as it states, do not approach a woman in her menstrual impurity. 347, not to cohabitate with another man's wife, as it states, and to your fellow's wife you should not cohabitate. 348, not to cohabitate with an animal, as it states, do not cohabitate with any animal. 349, that a woman not bring an animal to cohabitate with her, as it states, and a woman should not stand before an animal for cohabitation. 350, not to cohabitate with a male, as it states, do not cohabitate with a male. 351, not to cohabitate with one's father himself, as it states, do not cohabitate with your father. 352, not to cohabitate with one's father's brother himself, as it states, do not cohabitate with your father's brother. 353, not to approach the forbidden liaisons with those things that lead to cohabitation, such as hugging, kissing, hinting, or gesturing, as it states, to all close relatives, do not approach, as may lead to cohabitation. By oral tradition, they learn that this is a warning against closeness, which brings to cohabitation. 354, that a mamzer not marry a native-born Jewish woman, as it states, a mamzer may not enter Hashem's congregation, meaning for marriage. 355, that there be no harlot, that is a woman who is cohabitated with, without a marriage contract. In marriage, as it states, there shall be no harlot. 356, that one who divorced his wife not remarry a divorcee after she married another, as it states, her first husband who divorced her may not marry her again. 357, that a woman eligible for levirate marriage not marry any strange man other than her dead husband's brother, as it states, the dead man's wife should not marry. 358, that a rapist not divorce his victim, as it states, he must not divorce her all his life. 359, that a libelous husband not divorce his wife, as it states regarding him, he must not divorce her for all his life. 360, that a eunuch not marry a natural-born Jewish woman, as it states, one with an injured member may not enter the congregation for marriage. So 361, not to castrate a male of any species, not man, nor domestic animal, wild animal, nor fowl, as it states, you shall not do so in your land. 362, not to appoint a leader for the Jewish people from the community of converts, as it states, you may not appoint a foreigner over you. 363, that the king not accumulate many horses, as it states, he shall not accumulate too many horses. 364, that the king not have too many wives, as it states, and he shall not accumulate too many wives. 365, that the king not accumulate for himself too much silver and gold, as it states, in silver and gold he shall not accumulate very much. So these are the 613 mitzvot which were transmitted to Moshe at Sinai. Their rules and specifics and their particulars, all those rules, particulars, and explanations, each and every commandment are oral Torah, conveyed from Beit Din to Beit Din. They are additional commandments which originated after the Torah was given, established by prophets and sages. They were disseminated among all Israel, such as the reading of the Megillah, the Hanukkah lights, the fast of Tisha B'Av, impurity regarding the impurity and ritual washing of hands, the Eruv. Each of these commandments has its own explanations and specifics. All these will be clarified in this work. So it is very important that you understand that, like, he's enumerating all this because the oral Torah is the expansion of this. So it's very interesting because we went over the positive mitzvot, and it took like 37 minutes. We just finished the negative mitzvot, and it took us like 58 minutes to read through that. So like altogether, you're talking a little over an hour and a half to literally go through and enumerate every positive and negative mitzvot in the Torah. So he uses this as the basis which the oral law is expanded upon. So this is actually proof for the oral law, because if you read some of those commandments, you think, well, how in the world, how are some of those details, like, we need more details, because we can't act that out, we can't perform that without more details. And that's why the oral law exists. The oral Torah exists because of that. That's basically the proof of it. You can't fulfill a lot of these things without additional details. So I'm going to continue here. All these new commandments we are bound to accept and observe, as it states, do not go astray from the word. They therefore are not considered additions to the Torah's commandments. Regarding what sort of added commandments did the Torah warn, do not add to it and do not detract from it. A prophet is not authorized to enact an original commandment and to announce that Hashem commanded to add this commandment to those in the Torah, or to detract one of these 613 mitzvot. But if the Beit Din, along with the prophet of those times, added a commandment as an ordinance, or by way of ruling, or by way of decree, this is not an addition, for they did not say that Hashem commanded us to establish an Eruv, or to read the Megillah at its appointed time. If they had decreed so, that would be adding to the Torah. Rather, we say that the prophets, along with the Beit Din, ordained and instructed to read the Megillah in its appointed time in order to recall the praises of Hashem and the salvation he effected for us, being near to us, so that we bless and glorify him, and to inform future generations that the veracity of what he promised us in his Torah, as it states, for what nation is so great that it has God close to it. This is the nature of all commandments of rabbinic origin, whether a positive mitzvah or a negative mitzvah. So Maimonides continues. He says, I saw fit to divide this text into 14 books. The first book, I will include in it all those mitzvot which are the fundamentals of the faith of Moshe Rabbeinu, which must be taught first of all, such as Hashem's unity, blessed be he, and the prohibition of idol worship. I've called this book the Book of Knowledge, Sefer Madah. In the second book, I'll include in it those mitzvot which are constant, which we were commanded in order to love Hashem and to constantly remember him, as the recitation of the Shema, prayer, which is the Amidah, Shemona Esrei, Tefillin, and the blessings. Circumcision is included because it is a sign in our flesh, serving as a constant reminder when there are not tefillin, tzitzit, and the like. I have called this book the Book of Love, so Sefer Ahava. The third book, I will include in it all mitzvot which are at appointed times, such as Shabbos and the festivals. I have called this book the Book of Seasons, Sefer Zamanim. In the fourth book, I will include in it the mitzvot of physical relations, such as marriage, divorce, yivum, and chalitza. I have called this book the Book of Women, so Sefer Nashim. The fifth book, I will include in it the mitzvot of forbidden physical relationships and the mitzvot of forbidden foods. For by these two subjects, Hashem has sanctified us and separated us from the nations by forbidden physical relations and forbidden foods. For regarding both, it states, I have separated you from the nations, that I have separated you from the nations. So he's giving like two quotes from the Torah there. It's basically the same, but from two different locations. I have called this book the Book of Holiness, so Sefer Kedusha. In the sixth book, I will include in it the mitzvot incumbent upon a person who has bound himself by his statements, such as oaths and vows. I've called this book the Book of Expressions, so Sefer Hafla'ah. The seventh book, I will include in it the mitzvot relating to agriculture, such as Shemitah and Yovel, tithes, and priestly tithes, terumot, and other mitzvot related to this topic. I have called this book the Book of Agriculture, or Sefer Zeraim. The eighth book, I will include in it the mitzvot regarding the construction of the Beit HaMikdash and the regular communal offerings. I have called this book the Book of Service, so Sefer Avodah. The ninth book, I will include in it the mitzvot regarding individual offerings. I have called this book the Book of Offerings, so Sefer Korbanot. The 10th book, I will include in it the mitzvot regarding ritual purity and impurity. I have called this book the Book of Purity, so Sefer Tahara. The 11th book, I will include in it the mitzvot relevant to those interactions between man and his fellow man that primarily involve property damage or physical injury. I've called this book the Book of Damages, Sefer Nizakin. The 12th book, I will include in it the mitzvot regarding or regulating sale and acquisition. I've called this book the Book of Acquisition, Sefer Kinyan. The 13th book I will include in it the mitzvot relevant to man's interactions with his fellow man, which do not primarily involve property damage, such as guardians, debtors, claims, and denials. I have called this book the Book of Judgments, so Sefer Mishpatim. The 14th book I will include in it the mitzvot entrusted to the Sanhedrin, such as court-administered death penalty, acceptance of testimony, and statutes of the kings in wars. I have called this book the Book of Judges, so Sefer Shoftim. This is the division of the laws in this text according to the subject of each book, and the division of the mitzvot according to the subject of the laws. I will now begin to explain all the laws of each commandment and all the statutes included in its subject in the order of the laws with the help of the Almighty, the Omnipresent.